Hello everyone, my name is Xiaoxiao Miao. Today I will introduce our work about the analyzing language-independent speaker anonymization framework under unseen conditions. First of all, I will give the introduction about the speaker anonymization. This task is to suppress the speaker's identity, meanwhile preserve other information, which allows the downstream tasks. Specifically, let's assume users have their original data. Each utterance contains linguist information and also other characteristics like emotion, gender, speaker identity, or maybe accent and other speech-related attributes. After applying speaker anonymization system, the users hope their speaker identity can be removed or protected, but other information can keep unchanged. After that, they can publish this anonymized data we called test trials from the user side. There are two types of evaluation metrics. The first one is EER, to assess how well the speaker anonymization system can protect speaker privacy when facing different attackers with different level knowledge about the SAS. The first one called ignorant attacker. This is a very weak one because the attackers don't realize the users have used the SAS to anonymize their test trials. The attackers simply use the original speech to detect the speaker identity. The second one called lazy informed attacker, which is a little bit stronger because this attacker knows the SAS is SAS, but don't know the specific parameters. So they can get the different studio speaker, but they can still recognize the speaker identity using the similar method. The next evaluation matrix is CER, is to assess how well the speech content can be preserved in the anonymized speech. In summary, an ideal system should achieve very high EER in ignorant and lazy informed conditions. Meanwhile, very low CER. This CER should be as low as the original speech to preserve speech content. Now let's move to the SL-based language independent SAS. We proposed this previously, and we can say this method because we will analyze this system. So I'd like to introduce this firstly. We can say the speech can be disentangled into F0 content features and also speaker vector. And we assume the speaker vector can represent speaker's identity. So by anonymizing the speaker vector, we can protect speaker's privacy. And how to do it? Actually, the baseline is to find the speaker vectors from an external pool and take their average as the anonymized speaker vector. After that, we can combine these vectors with the original F0 and the content features, feed them to vocoder Haifigan to generate the anonymized speech. In this system, we can say the SL-based models trained in an unsupervised way, so it can provide a more general content representation. So it's possible. It allows the system to anonymize speech data from any language. In the previous experiment, we showed that compared with the VPC baseline, our SL-based system can achieve similar EER, but obviously better WER on the anonymized speech. We also tested this system on the Mandarin dataset. You can see I listed the results in these two tables. So the EER we can it's reasonable, but it's obvious that there is a big decrease, big gap on the CER of the anonymized speech compared to the original speech. So in this work, we want to know we want to analyze what's the performance bottleneck of our systems under the unseen conditions, like Mandarin datasets. And we will examine the components of our systems one by one and present techniques to reduce this bottleneck. The first one, we investigate the multilingual SL-based software content encoder because it's trained on the unlabeled English data. We are wondering whether it can be improved if we're using the multilingual dataset. But unfortunately, we didn't see any improvement. So I will not present the results here. The next step, we investigate multilingual high-frequency. It's because several papers mention that to achieve a robust vocoder, the training dataset has to cover diverse speakers and languages. But in our baseline, the high-frequency is trained on the English data, so there is multi-speakers, but only English data. So to verify this hypothesis, we train the model, multilingual high-frequency model, to say whether we can reduce this bottleneck. Another hypothesis is on the anonymized speaker vector, because the anonymized vector is extracted from is computed from the English vector pool. And several researchers have showed the speaker vector contains speaker unrelated information from the source domain, like channel conditions and lexical content. And we argue that this mismatch from the English data will affect the Mandarin speaker anonymization. Yeah, so to verify this, we simply introduce the color transformation to make the source English anonymized speaker vector move to the target or multilingual, it's a general vector space, or the target Mandarin speaker vector space. So the color transformation actually is to compute the one transformation metric to minimize the source distribution and the target distribution, to make the covariance between them close together. This is experimental details. We use Mandarin test set sampled from Xiaoxiao 3, and two evaluation models, ASV and ASR, are language matched trained with the Mandarin data. And for the multilingual high-frequency, we use the German, Italian, Spanish, and also the English data. It is noted there is no Mandarin data when we train the multilingual high-frequency. And for the color transformation, we investigated two types of color. One is general color. It's actually the multilingual, the target space is a multilingual space without the Mandarin. And another one is more specific language matched color transformation using the Mandarin data also sampled from the Xiaoxiao 3 test set, but there is no overlap between the color transformation and also the test set we used. Now let's look at the results on the multilingual HiFi and the monolingual HiFi. The top result is the EER, and the bottom result is the CERs. To make the comparison fired, we also tested the resynthesized condition, because in the resynthesized conditions, we only use the original speaker vector rather than the anonymized speaker vector to better investigate the effect of the multilingual HiFi GAN. So we keep the speaker vector same during the resynthesized processing. The conclusion is that the multilingual HiFi GAN can keep similar protection ability of the speaker identity on this different scenarios, and better preservation of the speech contents on the resynthesized. So it shows the multilingual HiFi GAN is effective or better for the speech content. So next is the color transformation experiments. The purple bar is the resolved color, and the rest bars are using the different color with the different utterances to compute the transformer matrix. First, let's look at the red bar and the purple bar. The red bar is using the general color and using the 100 utterances to calculate the color transformation metric. Apparently color achieves higher EER on the ignorant condition and lower CER for the anonymized speech. If we take one further step, we compare the general color and the Mandarin color. We can see the Mandarin color, of course, can perform better on the CERs than the general color. The third thing is we also investigate the different utterances using the different number of utterances to calculate the transformation matrix of color. We say it can still achieve better EER and lower CER. So the message we can get from these figures is that the mismatch on the anonymized speaker vectors severely affects the SAS. So here is our conclusions. Like I mentioned just 2 seconds ago, the performance bottleneck is the HiFi GAN and also the anonymized speaker vector. If we using multilingual HiFi GAN and the color strategy, which can improve both privacy and utility. Let's look at these figures. In this figure, we say B indicates the baseline, and M is using the multilingual HiFi GAN, and the MJC is using the multilingual HiFi GAN and also the general color. So MMC is using the Mandarin color and also multilingual HiFi GAN. We can say this is the baseline system, and our using the multilingual and Mandarin color can achieve better EER and lower CER, obviously. Yeah, that's all. And if you are interested with our work, you can find the source code and audio samples from this link. Thanks for listening.